but now they only block the...
Hello, it's Emma Thompson. You know me from my movie roles. I've done so many. Love Actually.
But clouds got in
The part where I'm crying and putting my hands against my face because I'm crying, realizing that the very beautiful, handsome Alan Rickman has found a different woman. And I'm crying. My face is red. I deserved an Oscar for that, don't you think? And I think podcasters that do it independently and that aren't part of a huge Fortune 500 monstrosity, I think those independent podcasters need your ears. Perk your ears up for the independent podcasters. Like Mike Matthews, for example. Stop crying, chin up. Here's his show.
This show is clean.
So sad.
Pretty much.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 854. Hello, this is Mike Matthews broadcasting from Cafe Anyway here at the last place on earth located somewhere in Podcastro Valley. Today, it's part 2 of my 4-part interview with the amazing Seattle singer-songwriter Daniel G. Harmon. Plus, we hear from Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the engineer, and is the moon made of cheese? No! That sucks.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
It's made of molten hot magma. We find out more with any luck.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
So I moved to the Bay Area over 5 years ago, and by now I have some definite opinions about San Francisco, and that is there are lots of things that the city has let go, like common sense and sanity and respect for people. It is so dirty, and like we heard from my recent guest Kai Alfred Hillig,
Mike's Daily Podcast.
You get accosted by the homeless. Look, I don't dance a jig.
Mike's
I don't work for Twitter
Daily
and Google. Don't yell at me
Podcast.
to give you money. Here's a little tip. Move out of this enabling city that helps you get the drugs you're addicted to and find a cheaper place that gives you a healthy lifestyle away from the dirt and the grime and the urine on the sidewalks. Yes, this town is wonderful. It has its art and a beautiful multicultural atmosphere. And I will always love all that and the amazing landmarks like the Golden Gate Bridge and Coit Tower, the Presidio, the beauty of the fog rolling over the hills. But this town is teetering on the edge of chaos. Plus, I could never afford to live here in San Francisco. Therefore, I choose to make my home across the bay, in the East Bay, where people seem a little more sane, and there is Podcastro Valley. Look who just walked in.
Hello, Mike Matthews. It's Chely Shoehart, gift shop supervisor. I would love to live in San Francisco with that guy from 50 Shades of Grey who's really rich and would tie me up and make me do weird things.
No, Chely, don't bite that apple.
Oh my God, Mike Matthews, you made it sound like I was Snow White. Thank you.
You're welcome. Look who else just walked in. Hello, Mike, this is Floyd the Floorman.
And this is John Deere the engineer. Yes, Mike. San Francisco seems to be overpriced.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. But you could work for Google and all those other companies because you're smart and you're an engineer and you created a time machine.
Which I don't allow anyone to use anymore.
Yes, because it upset the time-space continuum too much.
Yeah, something like that.
You know, and I would also like to say that I'm so thankful to Anne Hathaway for naming herself after Shakespeare's wife, and then also for jumping on a wrecking ball and doing her little lip sync thing, because it broke the internet, got so many views on YouTube. She's so lovely with her amazing lips and bod. And then Jimmy Fallon also helped, do the whole lip syncy thing with that contest he does on his show. So it's brought back the lip sync contest, which reminds me that back in my teen years, I used to do a lip sync contest at the Ventura County Fair, which I never won, but came close to. One year I did the song by Bruce Springsteen, I'm going down, 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 down. And then the other year I did Boston, can't you say you believe in me? And that was, I won, I think, these plastic guitars that I hung on my wall. Sort of a badge of honor. Mike, that's amazing you admitted to all that. I did just admit to all that. Crazy. So that's something, the lip syncing is coming back, and it's great watching these famous celebrities do that, let their hair down, and the songs they pick. It's kind of neat to see what they find, like Paul Rudd being a huge fan of Tina Turner's You Better Be Good to Me, and doing a great version of that lip syncing. But I think my lip syncing ears have sunk. Oh, Mike, that was a play on words! Yeah. But this show, we are actually going to have a singer, Daniel G. Harmon. He was on the last show, and Madame Rutabaga was so taken by him, she wanted him to play for I'm lost in pronouns. And she said that she would pay him handsomely, which grossed us all out because we knew what she was going to pay him with. Then we found out that, Ted Cruz and Rand Paul are running for president. And we were saying Rand Cruiser because that's what the Disgruntled Fiddle Player wants to happen, for them to both be on the same ticket, and that would be their, abbreviated name, Rand Cruiser. And then they get sued by Jeep. But Ted has been called by you guys. What did you call him, John Deere the engineer?
I call him Ted Hypocrite Cruz.
And why is that?
Because he voted to repeal Obamacare, yet he himself has Obamacare.
Wow, that is a bit of a contradiction.
Mike, that guy's a scary wacko!
All right, let's not get into politics on today's show. But you could also call him Hippo Ted. No, wait, that doesn't work. Or Hippo Cruz. Ted Hippo Cruz?
Mike, I think you're done.
I came in like a wrecking ball. Ah! John Deere, I thought that wrecking ball was securely fastened to the ceiling of Cafe anyway.
Yeah, well, it supports a normal man's weight. Maybe you gained a few pounds.
Yeah, well, maybe you did. I need to lay off the mochas. So the moon is not made of cheese. Scientists have long believed that the moon formed from debris created when a Mars-sized object crashed into Earth about 4.5 billion years ago. But there's one very big problem with this so-called giant impact hypothesis, according to the Huffington Post, and that is, if the moon indeed formed from the collision between Earth and another object, why is the moon a near chemical match to our planet? Shouldn't it contain chemically distant remnants of that other object too? Finally, a new study has found what previously scientists believed, that the likelihood that Earth and its impactor had similar makeups was only around 1%, but the new research ups that odds to 20 to 40%. For the research, the team analyzed data from the computer simulations of 40 artificial solar systems to examine how often planets are similar to big objects that hit them. It turned out that since many planets and their impactors form at similar distances from the sun, they had similar compositions, similar enough to account for the resemblances found between Earth and the moon. On average, they say, impactors are similar to the planets they impact compared with different planets in the same system. Our study was the first to reconsider this issue, now exploring it with larger data and a wide range of models. So the Earth was impacted by another Earth, basically. So that means that we killed off another planet by making our planet. And I thought I had my quota of guilt already today. But what do you think about all this? Email me, MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. We read your comments on the section emails from email. Also email me there if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to sponsor the show, MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. We also have the website, MIKES-DAILY-PODCAST.com, with links to where to listen to the show in iTunes. You can subscribe to the show there. Comment on the show and rate the show there. If you do that, more people find out about us. We don't languish in obscurity like Emma Thompson was talking about at the beginning of the show. That little opener made me cry. You can also hear us on YouTube, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, Podomatic, Mixcloud, Spreaker, Player FM, Ameristream. And I am on the Connecticut radio station called Wolverine Radio, weekday mornings. You can catch that on the internet. and that's from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. There's a link to where to find that at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Also, the country radio station that I am on weekends, and actually I'm going to be on it tomorrow as well from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Link to that is at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Share this show with your friends. Like on Facebook. Like the Facebook page. When I post a new show, share it with your friends and more people will find out about us that way. We're also on Twitter. Retweet us when I tweet. And more people will find out about us there too. So follow us on Twitter and Instagram, Yelp, Tumblr. Links to all those at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. And the Amazon link. If you're going to buy anything on Amazon, go through that link first. And that helps us out a little bit. We've also got the blog, Daily Podcast Picture, and all my past interviews there at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. And speaking of interviews, here's part 2 of my little chat with the amazing singer-songwriter from Seattle, Washington, Daniel G. Harmon.
Into an interview.
Cool, thank you.
We're speaking
Thanks,
with
man.
Daniel G. Harmon, not to be confused with Dan Hartman, who did I Can Dream About You.
That's the song.
If I Can't Hold You Tonight.
Right. I also get him, I don't know why, but I think that like 80s genre of crap, I get him mixed up with like Lady in Red.
Oh,
Ed DeBerg, or what's his name?
Christaberg.
Christopher is dancing with me cheek to cheek. That could very easily be Dan Hartman for all I know.
Christaberg did Don't Pay the Ferryman. Don't let him.
You went into some deep cuts there, Mike.
Actually, that was his first hit. That was sort of like it actually got played on album rock stations. And then all of a sudden in the mid 80s, he releases this Lady in Red song that, of course, is a big adult contemporary hit. And
sappy. I just remember I had a bunch of uncles. My dad has like 4 brothers, and they all got married around the same time, like in the late 80s, early 90s. And that song was played at every one of their weddings. So I think that's how Christaberg / Dan Hartman will forever live on. The wedding dances.
I once talked about on this podcast about how there are 3 songs that are exactly the same. There's the Lady in Red, that one we just discussed. Eric Clapton's Wonderful Tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And you know that one, and she tells me softly, do you feel all right? And I say, yes, you look wonderful tonight. And then...
That's right.
So that song came out, I think, early 80s or late 70s, Eric Clapton. Christaberg in the 80s. And then in the 90s, you had... and I can't describe, there's something about the way you look tonight. The Elton John song takes my breath away. And I'm like, oh, these guys just rewrote the same song over and over.
Dude, I mean, think about that whole, Blurred Lines Marvin Gaye thing. Like, that...
Oh, yeah. With
I think that's such... I don't know. There's nothing original.
Right.
And if they happen to be listening to whatever and smoking a doobie and then we're like wrote a thing, like I don't think that people are truly evil and think that they're going to get away with like that,
Right.
Like it's just accidental that stuff that we heard once when we were 7 pops out.
And I think they did an excellent job grabbing that sort of feel from Marvin Gaye's disco era.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did something different, and they threw beautiful naked women in there. It was great.
Hey, you can't complain about that.
It was a wonderful tune.
For what it was great.
But what did you think of Pharrell's Happy?
I think Pharrell's solo stuff sucks. Like, he's not a very good songwriter, and NERD was garbage, but like everything that he ever produced is amazing. Yeah. So this was like the first time I'd ever really heard him do anything that wasn't garbage, and I think that was a great pop song.
The Happy?
Oh yeah, and it hit like people lost their minds over it. I think it's just a perfect example of a song that could have come out 3 months prior or a year later and wouldn't have had the same effect. It was just all timing.
Yeah, and it was all part of that movie with the minions of Despicable Me.
Right. Despicable Me, right?
Too, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of great producers, your album it was produced by Brandon Eggleston.
Yeah.
Of Modest Mouse and Josh Ritter.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
He actually mixed the last Trouble Starts record. So he lived in Seattle for a while. He went to school up here, and the Trouble Starts bass player, my buddy Kenny, went to school with him, and they became friends. And he produced one of Kenny's old band's records. And for some reason, he heard about my music and liked it. And when we recorded the last Trouble Starts record, I kind of become email friends with him, and either Kenny or I reached out and was like, hey, would you be interested in mixing it? And he's like, yep. And he just gave us a really good deal, like total bro rate. And then we became friends. And then when I decided to make a solo record, I was like, I got to do it outside of Seattle. I got to get away. And it was just the natural choice. And it was amazing that it actually ended up happening, because Brandon's so busy. Like he's on tour right now with the Mountain Goats, or Swans, and he was doing the Modest Mouse record and the Dandy Warhols at the same time. So for the three of us to be able to get down there and do it was pretty miraculous that it actually lined up. But it was great. It was I always I always only work with producers and engineers that I love as people. Because there's no point in wasting a week or two or a month of your life holed up in a studio with someone that you can't see eye to eye with personally.
True.
And so Brandon and I had become friends prior to it, and then became even greater friends making the record. Like, he's a true, I don't know, he's just such a sweet guy and has such a good ear for what my music needs, that it was just a no-brainer, and it worked out great.
Oh, wow, that's great. And that's a great philosophy to have, that you can spend time with him and he gets the good stuff out of your music and puts it on tape. I don't know what I'm saying.
I think so many people just go to, hardly anyone records records in studios anymore. Everyone just does it on their own, which is fine, I guess. But, if you're going to go and spend a lot of money and go to a studio and make a great sounding record, I think that you should do your research and spend time finding someone that, is good at making records that you like right. Records that you listen to, and then spend some time with that person and see if they're a good connection personally. It's like dating. You don't want to spend, like I said, you don't want to spend a month of your life with a person, 18 hours a day if you guys don't like each other.
Exactly. Yes.
So
that's okay. Something I should have thought of before I got married. Last marriage.
1 whole month, 18 hours a day.
Getting married, it's sort of like finding a producer for your album.
That's right. But Wise Words by Daniel G. Harmon.
Daniel G. Harmon, you also have this great song called Elkland off of White Mountains that I love and I want to play right now. And
that song, thank you. That song is actually kind of embodies the theme of the record more than anything, I think.
And it builds and builds and it flourishes and it sweeps you up.
Thank you. Yeah. That's the stuff I like doing, big crescendos and a lot of dynamics. So we were able to pull it off.
And then so inspired by your White Mountains theme, anything else in particular got you going writing the song?
That song kind of started, we were practicing, and Bill, my buddy who plays keyboards with me, was just dicking around and came up with this swelling keyboard part, and I just started playing guitar over it, and then it was born. It's one of those things where some songs you just kind of struggle with for years, and some of them just come alive instantly, and that one happened pretty quickly, and I went home and wrote the lyrics for it.
Wow. See, I would have thought the opposite about this song. It sounds like it's got so much layering and stuff.
Well, once we brought Colin in, my friend who played drums on it, that kind of drove the rest of the structure of it, because it's long and meandering and kind of leans more towards my older stuff that I used to do. So I feel comfortable in that zone. So once I get locked into an idea for a song, I figure out I think it's going to head this direction, and then it kind of evolves pretty quickly, especially when you have two dudes that are way better musicians than you'll ever be. You give them any sort of nugget and they run with it.
Well, I want to play this song because it's awesome and because I have a podcast that allows me to do such things.
Thanks, Mike.
It's Daniel G. Harmon with Elkland from the album White Mountains, which comes out today because I'm going to play this part in the future on Thursday.
The magic of the internet.
April 9th. And here it is on Mike's Daily Podcast.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, hit those keys really hard. Nice. Sustain. Awesome. That is Daniel G. Harmon as we go outside of Cafe Anyway here at the last place on earth, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley. Tomorrow, part 3 of my 4-part interview with Daniel G. Harmon.
And here's today's podcast picture.
The picture is of Santa Cruz, which is a beautiful, beautiful spot right there in the south of Wales. No, it's actually, just south of the Bay Area, south of San Jose. And this was, I haven't been there in like a year. I need to get down there with Basil the Boxer. I know, Basil. It's so much fun. Now, I hear they've cracked down on those little cliffs that you see there, or they're huge cliffs, but in between the cliffs, you can walk down, and there's little beaches there along Santa Cruz. And there used to be sort of this unwritten rule that it was illegal to bring the dogs to those little beaches and let them run around free. But nobody observed that rule, and just everybody brought their dogs down there and they played. But I've heard recently they've enforced that. And since I am like a lightning rod for getting tickets for having the dog off the leash, even though everybody else is doing it, I'm the one that gets caught and gets the ticket and has to pay the $300 fine. So I am a little bit leery about doing that, of taking a trip to Santa Cruz. Plus, it takes me like 2 hours to get there, and you gotta drive through this mountain range, and it's beautiful, but wham. See that picture now at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com.
Mike Matthews, it's like so beautiful, and you see the ice plants.
Yeah, ice plants. It's a California thing. They're awesome, and they bloom this time of year. In the spring, they've got these beautiful little flowers that pop open, and they're yellow and purple. It's so nice.
I know, Mike Matthews. It's like wonderful.
You know what, Chely? I want to give you a hug.
Oh, thanks, but don't.
All right. Next show, we are going to bring you part 3 of my Into It interview with the very talented Daniel G. Harmon. Plus, we're going to hear from Benita, the rodeo queen, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Email Mike now at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!